Hi, this is Pratim Ranjan Bose, and you are watching Podcast with Pratim. First, the good news. The Prime Minister struck agreements with the United Arab Emirates that will increase our strategic reserves. Iran is also will lay a pipeline to a port that is just beyond after the outside the Strait of Hormuz. So from by next year, so that will start. That will bring a little more sanity in the and security in the movement of oil products, particularly the crude oil. There are agreements to create LPG reserves in India as well. The crude reserve India has roughly 30 roughly 8 to 10 days of reserve, strategic reserve. UAE will build another 6 odd days of reserve. So that will give us clear 2 weeks, which can be stretched up to 3 weeks. The government plans to ramp up this reserve capacity over the years. As you know, the importance of the deal lies in UAE will finance it because keeping crude oil, millions of barrels of crude oil, is not no joke. So it has a cost. The agreement is that during exigencies like now, as things are today, so we will have the priority on the reserve. So that said, the primary problem remains. All these things are will start happening from next year. This is about ensuring supplies, but the primary problem, that is the short-term problem, remains. The Iran crisis completed 3 months. And if I take Prime Minister Modi's May 10 speech that led to a stock market crash uh, of any significance, it actually, he is expecting, or he he indicated us that the crisis is not going to end very soon. Remember, this is the second time since COVID when the Prime Minister had personally appealed to people to for tighten seat belts. We all are aware what happened after PM Modi's speech. Well-known banker Uday Kotak cautioned that bad times are coming and it is better to be prepared. We all know that India is disproportionately affected by the Middle East crisis because of our dependence on the region for energy supplies. Our crude, okay, fine, you have 40 countries to supply crude, that is on paper, but because you have to have, each crude is different. So suppose if you are bringing Venezuelan crude, only 2 refineries in India can process it. It is so heavy. So there are many issues involved. It is no joke that a region that fuels global energy is now embroiled into this war and etc. So naturally we have our problems, and the LNG, for example, China sources a part of its crude and gas, particularly from Russia. They are next door neighbors, and there are pipelines. So they are not as dependent as we on supplies of LNG from Qatar and etc. So we are disproportionately affected by the Middle East crisis. It is known, and the energy crisis is not the only thing. The shortage of ammonia, we also source ammonium nitrate from Middle East, from Oman, for example. Now, all those are affected. So that led to a problem of in terms of fertilizer. The problems are twofold. One is availability, and the other one is price. Now, as that takes us to a serious problem. First is your import bill is rising because the crude basket, the Indian basket, as I said, that India imports crude from 40 odd destinations. So we average it out. So our India basket, the last price I checked in May was at $106 per barrel. This is clearly 70% higher than what it was in January before the Iran war began. So the import bill is rising. Naturally, there will be pressure on the forex reserves. There is nothing like you are suffering from lack of reserves. We have some 10 to 11, almost a year long reserve, which is enough to feed us for an year or so. So, but that's not the point. But the moment your dollar reserve goes down, and naturally your the demand for dollar goes down, so the dollar gets stronger and rupee gets weaker. Now, that is one side of the story. The other side is that as your import bill is rising, and so say, for example, fertilizer, so the food subsidy will go up. That means that the fiscal deficit, which was supposed to get reduced this year, the BJP government has been very, very particular in keeping the stability, fiscal stability. So they had been putting things on tight leash from the beginning. But again, this sudden thing may just increase the fiscal gap to 4.6%. So that will lead to wider macroeconomic that will weaken the fundamentals, and which as a result will weaken rupee, which is already under pressure and has breached the 96 mark, 96 rupee a dollar mark briefly. The other factor which is contributing to the weakening of rupee is the exodus of foreign institutional investors. So it so happened that, when rupee weakens, it essentially increases the export income. Because for the same dollar, you are going to get more Indian rupees for a short term. Because over a period of time, the buyer, overseas buyer, he also knows that you are getting an advantage. So he also starts asking for more rebates, discounts. But anyway, the problem on the other side is that the Indian stock market is giving returns. It was giving returns in rupee terms, fantastic. But when the rupee has weakened, so essentially the return in dollar terms has reduced. So that led to the exodus of FII, which again is reducing the price of rupee. That is one side, but the wider macroeconomic fundamentals are even more scary. The wholesale price index, which definitely has a bearing from that fiscal gap and etc. Overall, the increase in prices, the import bill. So we just saw the wholesale price index for April had shot up by more than double to above 8%. It will reflect in the headline inflation, that is consumer price index, sooner than later. So, our inflation was absolutely well managed. It was within range, but suddenly we are going to see a spot in that. Now, when the inflation goes up, so naturally the interest rate, the overall impact, as I said, these weakening fundamentals, macroeconomic fundamentals, fiscal gap, etc. So one impact that is going to come is that the interest rate, which has reduced marginally, and we were expecting it to further reduce, but now the interest rate will firm up or may firm up. That takes us to a bigger problem. The Indian industry had just started investing in capacity addition for last 1 or 2 quarters. That is after almost a decade-long wait. On this platform, we have discussed time and again with guests about that when will the capex cycle start. And finally, it started happening. We have been witnessing green shoots in the economy. But the rise in interest rates, the stock market not performing that well, which means that the promoters will have less opportunity to raise finance. interest rate going up, all these things. And don't forget that inflation will reduce will have a dampening effect on the consumption naturally. So all these things put together is yeah, it can put a speed breaker on the investment plans. Is the new uncertainties, and that means the real problem is that we were focusing on or visualizing or envisaging very high growth uh, to achieve the goal of Vikshit Bharat in 2047. So there is a problem. We can see clear headwinds to that problem. This whole thing is not invited, we were not responsible. This is the for the problem that has happened. There are some questions who feel that some people feel that we could have acted better. The case in point is whether we could have increased the fuel prices, pump prices faster. It has just been done, roughly 2 to 3 rupees price increase per liter after having kept fuel prices, pump prices flat for so long. The government first tried to take the heat on themselves by reducing the excise taxes. But well, I also feel that in fact I wrote on X that when will the government increase the prices? In fact, there should be a limit to delay. So I believe the government could have increased prices at least 15 to 20 days in advance. They could have done that. That would have saved some money. Ultimately, it's all about balance sheet. So, so that said, there is the real issue now is that whether we can grow. We are ambitious as a nation. We have become very ambitious about our growth. About that leads to many things. Your economic might is your military might, and a lot of things. So there is a pile of gloom in the planning circle at this moment. That actually took me to do this podcast. I've been talking to very high-ranking officials in the government, and I find them demoralized. They have observations to make, but they are, how to make things better or how to fight it out. But they all are keeping mum. I mean, someone said that people are not talking in the government, even behind closed doors. These are not the decision makers. Now, that is where the problem is. The Modi government has been running on two primary fundamentals. Number one, it's highly centralized, which gave it the efficiency. Let us not forget that India has never witnessed such fast infrastructure capacity creation ever. We were known for a nation where projects go on, for 2 decades and etc. So that didn't happen. This time, the things have come up very fast to our surprise. So this is one reason why the centralized operation, where some people at the top, mostly bureaucrats, take the decision and the rest follow. But there was a degree of exchanges within the system, of course, in the past. The other factor, other pivot of the government is Prime Minister Modi's popularity. If he gives call to people to tighten the seat belts, people listen. That's tremendous. He can sway, he can take people along with him. So that helped us survive the shocks. Remember, we are in an era of shocks. For our last 5 years, it has only been shocks. Which started with the pandemic and once in a century affair, then the Ukraine crisis, then this crisis, the US Fed doing something, something or the other is happening. And it will happen because whenever the global fundamentals weaken, the COVID particularly created many fissures within, and there will be a lot of problems before we are seeing how the WTO regime collapsed almost. There is the whole trade infrastructure architecture that we had collapsed. The UN architecture is almost collapsed. It has no meaning any further. The US is behaving like a Mad Max. So all this put together, we are in an era of shocks. And so far, these two pivots of centralized operation. Remember, I'm everyone. I think any Indian should be thankful enough to the government for its COVID handling, particularly the way of we put our foot down, and we brought our own vaccine. We did not give in to these American lobbies. We did not go out begging to China. We had, and our vaccination rate was as fast or better than China. So we should be thankful for doing that. But so that is what was keeping us going and going very good. I mean, in this era of shocks, in this era of crisis. But the point is that whether it can take us further, because the shocks are happening. Now, what is the challenge now? Why people are demoralized? The whole system was working. If you remember, if you go back, even I wrote a couple of times, that we had a window of 5 to 6 years to make up for the lost time. We all are aware that India has been a late starter. First, in opening the economy, we opened it at least 10 years, more than 10 years after China. And even after opening, we took a lot of time in going for a simple case in point is the coal commercial, allowing private companies to go for commercial coal mining. It was under it was nationalized until just 2-3 years ago. So 5 years ago. But China opened their coal mining sector back in 1975, or no, sorry, 1978. So you can well imagine that we were slow. So in adoption, this is a country where in the name of democracy, people resisted computerization. So in this country, so we are late. We are late in adopting in our drive to automation. We are late in our drive to adopt to artificial intelligence. We're late in adopting going for the semiconductor. The semiconductor plan was of 1980s, Rajiv Gandhi era, and then it went nowhere. So we are pushing, but we have now started building semiconductor capacity. But naturally, as a late starter, we are lower in the value chain. We have to go a long way. So we had 5 to 6 years time, we thought, when because of the global disruptions, we could catch up. Now, what is happening? What the downside story is that this disruption, for example, Iran crisis has cost us valuable time and effort, and our momentum suffered. On the other hand, if we look at the developments on the AI front, the global investor priority on AI and semiconductors. One of the reasons why FIIs are pulling out from India is that India doesn't have many stocks in that field, in the new technology field. So all these put together, which it means that the 5 to 6 years that you thought that the time that you will get to gear up and make up for the lost time and come at par with some of the world powers, this disruption, the Iran crisis, for example, and the AI revolution and etc., which has been happening, an ongoing story, this is reducing that time gap. So we don't have much time left. The naysayers, they are expecting India to start feeling the heat of AI revolution from next year, within a year or so, which means that there will be automation, there will be heavy automation, and automation, you must not stop it. So the net result is what you will, the job creation that you thought that you can create, you can do, you did not invest adequately in the education, skill building to the masses. So that those people demand low skill jobs. Now the low skill jobs will evaporate faster. So there are many downsides that people now see and talk or think. uh, Within the government, they think, but they don't speak out. They don't tell their fears. They don't share their anxieties with the system. And that I found a little scary, very scary, because, in West Bengal, saw the voters kept mum this polling season, just the recent polling season. Voters are mum. It made news in the national media that why Bengal voters are silent, unusually silent, even for Bengal standards. And when the EVMs were opened, we saw a silent revolution. They just, the Trinamool Congress lost its summary. So this is why a silence is not good within the system. The government, where I found as apparently things have gone wrong, is probably the two-way exchange of information within the government has been suffering. Only a few people, they took good decisions in the past, but no one knows whether they will be successful in future as well, because some people, there has been some kind of pessimism that has built up in the system. And I thought that I should bring it to the notice of the Prime Minister, to you. The same bureaucrat friends in Delhi who had been so upbeat about the government's capacity to tide over the series of crises that we saw over the last couple of years, who had been admiring the Prime Minister's abilities to pull through. Now these people are finally showing signs of frustration. So, it is not, I don't think that it's good, as my one bureaucrat friend tells me, is that everyone is looking for orders from the top. They are not going to do anything on their own. They are not speaking out. They are not, even if they know that this is something more could have been done to optimize on the situation, but they will just stay away from that. They will do whatever has been asked to. So I hope that the Prime Minister, being a leader, a statesman, so he will take measures to improve the exchange of information within the government, to reduce the gaps of information within the government. There must be new thoughts. Nothing should be taken as sacrosanct and granted. I believe a lot of negativity has built within the system, and it's high time that the Prime Minister takes care of that. Because this is the crisis, and we will win it only if we are together to fight it out. And the mood in the bureaucracy matters a lot, because it percolates down to the ground to people like me. Thank you very much for watching Podcast with Pratim.